For a long time, the galaxy treated humanity the way old oceans treat shipwrecks. Not as something to fear, not even as something to remember, just something that used to be there. A rumor with no coordinates, a shadow with no source. Among the elder clans, stories survived like dust, trapped in the seams of ancient stone. Whispers of a species from a lost cradle world. A people who refused the quiet endings that time gives to everyone else. They called them many things: Ironborn, Ashwalkers, the unrecorded, and in the oldest tongues, spoken only by archivists who still believed history could bite back, one name remained, faint but intact: humans. The details were never consistent. Some said they were builders who turned worlds into gardens. Others claimed they were war makers who turned gardens into glass. But the one part the stories always agreed on was this: humanity had been stubborn in the way storms are stubborn. Not moral, not noble, just unwilling to stop. And then one day they were gone. No flagged ruin, no drifting cities, no cultural signals on the old spectrum bands, no homeworld in the registers, no surviving treaty seals, nothing you could point at and say, here, they lived here. Only the gaps, only the places where official records became conveniently vague, only the uncomfortable little phrase tucked into the margins of council archives: pre-expansion, anomaly, non-verifiable, which is what bureaucracies call a ghost when they don't want to admit they're afraid of it. For centuries, the concord of systems ruled unchallenged, a council of empires spanning thousands of worlds, bound together by trade lanes and shared fear of chaos. They believed themselves the ceiling of civilization. Their fleets were polished. Their diplomacy was layered like armor. Their wars, when they happened, were measured, contained, and negotiated long before the first shot. The Concord loved control so much it made a religion out of it. Until the Car Dominion began to rise. At first, the Car were treated like a regional nuisance, raiders with ambition, warlords with heavy ships, and loud propaganda. The Concord had seen 100 dominions flare up and burn out. The difference was that the Car didn't burn out. System by system, they swallowed border worlds. They broke patrol fleets. They crippled supply lines. They took moons as hostages. And wherever the Concord hesitated, where committees debated and delegations argued, the Car advanced. The Concord's strength was procedure. The Car's strength was momentum. And momentum is a kind of weapon that doesn't care how elegant your laws are. By the time the Concord admitted this wasn't a regional disturbance, it was already too late for entire sectors. Worlds went dark. Transit gates fell silent. Distress calls piled up in the archive stacks unanswered, because answering them meant risking the image of control. And the Concord did not risk its image. It sacrificed everything else first. Then over Veron Prime, the sky tore open. Not with the shimmering curve of a standard rift, not with the blue shimmer of a civilian slip corridor. This was different. This was violent. The void itself split like fabric under pressure. A seam of burning darkness opened across space, and reality behaved as if it had been insulted. From that wound emerged ships unlike anything the galaxy had ever built. They were not sleek. They were not graceful. They did not look grown, like the biovessels of the mere hives. They did not look carved, like the crystalline hulls of the Aurelian orders. They looked constructed, welded, reinforced, repaired. The kind of ships you build when you've learned through bitter repetition that the universe will hit you hard, and you'd better hit back harder. Their hulls were angular and scarred. Their silhouettes were blunt. No ornate fins. No gilded ceremony plating, just armored geometry, just thick spines of metal with engines that pulsed like contained thunderstorms. And there were no insignias, no banners, no glowing diplomacy identifiers. They drifted into Veron space like a verdict. Then came the transmission, a single message, clean and simple, delivered in a language most species had only seen in dead textbooks. A voice, low and steady, as if it had waited a long time to speak. We are not a myth. A pause. We are human. Another pause. Longer. And we have returned. The Car Dominion, brutal, arrogant, hungry, laughed. To them, humanity was bedtime fiction. A cautionary tale for anxious council apprentices. A name used to scare young admirals into respecting supply lines. So the Car did what the Car always did. They fired first. A Car spear frigate, proud and overeager, unleashed a lance of superheated plasma toward the lead human vessel. It should have punched through any known shielding. It should have carved the ship open like ripe fruit. The blast hit. The human ship didn't move. It didn't flicker. It didn't roll away in panic. Its armor took the strike the way a mountain takes rain. Then, without announcement, without warning, its forward cannons opened. What followed was not elegant energy, not a precision beam, not a shimmering display of technological superiority meant to impress spectators. It was mass. It was force. Kinetic rounds the size of towers, moving at a speed that turned space itself into a brief, incandescent trail. They slammed into the car line, shields designed to withstand council cruisers, shattered like brittle glass. A car frigate folded. A destroyer lost its spine. A command vessel broke apart as if it had been hollow. The human fleet did not celebrate. They did not waste time. They advanced. Formation tight. Angles perfect, like choreography. Like this battle had been practiced 1,000 times in 1,000 different hells. They fired only when it mattered. They didn't chase. In less than 4 hours, the Car's spearhead, meant to be the opening fang of a larger conquest, was reduced to drifting fragments. The Car did not understand what was happening. They had never met an enemy that fought like a machine and felt like a memory. When the last Car ship fell silent, the humans transmitted again. The same voice, the same calm. This galaxy forgot us. A pause. You erased the roads that led to our home. Another pause, like a breath being held. That was a mistake. Across the stars, empires listened, and in the Concorde's marble halls, the first cracks began to spread through the illusion of control. The aftermath over Veron Prime sent shockwaves through every political organism in the galaxy, not because a battle had been won. Battles were won every day, but because a certainty had been broken. The Car Dominion had been unstoppable. They were not supposed to lose. They were especially not supposed to lose quickly. And they were not supposed to lose to something that the Concorde had filed away as non-verifiable. In the Concorde's capital world, Oris, the Grand Hall filled with voices that tried to sound calm. The elder delegates spoke in measured tones. The younger ones whispered like prey. Holograms displayed the debris field above Veron Prime, countless car ships, shattered and cooling, drifting like a warning. At the center of the hall stood High Chancellor Soliara, an Aurelian-born diplomat, whose silver eyes had stared down warlords and negotiated peace between species that hated each other by instinct. She had never looked uncertain before. Now she looked like someone who had stepped onto a floor and felt it shift under her. Reports arrived in waves. The human ships did not withdraw. They did not offer treaties. They did not request a seat at the table. They moved deeper into car space, dismantling stations, seizing gates, severing supply arteries with the cold patience of something that had waited a long time to settle a debt. A Marive speaker clicked its mandibles nervously. Have we sent a delegation? Solera's hands tightened on the edge of the council table. We tried. They did not answer. A granite-skinned general of the Thorn Syndicate growled, low and dangerous. Silence is worse than an ultimatum. Celera did not disagree. Silence is what predators use when they don't need to convince you. Meanwhile, in the void, aboard the flagship UHS Resolute Warden, a human admiral watched the battlefield cleanup unfold. His name was Admiral Corin Hale. He did not wear ceremonial medals. He wore function. A dark uniform, a single insignia, a simple emblem, representing the united human systems. Not an empire, not officially, but something that carried the weight of a people who had learned to stop asking permission. Beside him stood his tactical captain, Mara Kincaid, calm as a drawn blade. Above the command console, the ship's tactical intelligence projected data in clean lines of light. Car forces neutralized, 97.8%. Kincaid whistled softly. They believed the legends weren't real. Hale didn't smile. That's the most dangerous kind of belief. The ship's intelligence-designated mirror spoke with a voice that was almost gentle. We have intercepted Concord communications. They are watching. They are afraid. Hale's gaze remained on the stars. Good. He let that word hang. Not cruel, not proud, just inevitable. Let them remember. Kincaid tilted her head, and when they asked to talk, Hale's jaw tightened, and for a moment something older flickered across his expression. They had centuries to talk. He turned to the fleet map. Human ships were already moving into position around key car transit nodes. No haste, no chaos, just an expanding wall of steel and intent. Prepare the next sequence, Hale said. Kincaid nodded. Mirror chimed. Target packets ready. Hale spoke softly, as if to himself. This time, no one erases us. On Oris, the Concord called an emergency summit. Every empire sent someone. Even the Marives, who disliked politics as a concept, sent a brood envoy. Even the Thorn Syndicate, who measured diplomacy and weapon yield, sent a general. It was the most complete gathering in recorded history, which meant the fear had become contagious enough to overcome pride. Celera stood before the assembled delegates. A massive hologram showed what the humans had done since Veron Prime. They hadn't simply destroyed Car Fleet, they were dismantling the Dominion's infrastructure with ruthless efficiency. Station by station, gate by gate, world by world. The car once feared, now looked like prey being methodically stripped of its teeth. A Thorn general spoke first. This is an invasion. A Maranvoy clicked sharply. It is extermination. But then another projection appeared. Footage from a captured car world. A population that had been enslaved freed. Cities intact. Factories brought online again but under new management. Orbital defenses rebuilt, not to threaten civilians, to protect the system. The humans were not leaving ruins. They were leaving structure. Aurelian diplomat, Keleos Dre leaned forward, disbelief in his voice. This isn't what conquerors do. Celera's eyes narrowed. No, she said the word like a realization. This is what replacement looks like. Silence fell like a cloth thrown over flame. The humans weren't coming to take a few worlds. They were establishing a new reality. A species that didn't ask for a seat at the table because it remembered building tables of its own. Before the galaxy decided those tables should be forgotten, Celera watched the delegates absorb it. Then she spoke again. Carefully. We have one chance to understand. A Thorn general scoffed. Understand? You want to understand a storm? Celera's gaze did not waver. A storm is only dangerous if you pretend it isn't real. Then slowly she made the decision that would mark the end of the old era. I will go to them myself. The hall erupted. Protests, warnings, whispers of suicide. But Celera did not flinch, because she had finally understood what everyone else was refusing to say aloud. If the Concord waited, it would not be negotiating peace. It would be begging for survival. The Concord's envoy ship left Oris, under heavy escort. A sleek, diplomatic craft, marked with the Concorde sigil designed more for ceremony than endurance. As it entered the outer perimeter of human fleet space, the escorts peeled away, unwilling to go further. Even the bravest empires had limits. Inside, Celera sat rigid, fingers locked around the armrests. Her second, an Alari advisor named Relan Tove, stood near the comm station, face tight. "This is madness," he murmured. Celera didn't look at him. "It's reality." A voice crackled through the comms. Not hostile, not warm, just efficient. "Docking clearance approved. Proceed." No threats, no greetings, no diplomatic flourishes, just procedure, which Celera realized was its own form of dominance. The docking sequence was seamless, too seamless, as if the humans had mapped every possible angle of betrayal and removed them before they could exist. The airlock opened with a hiss. A squad of human soldiers waited beyond. Armor matte black, segmented, practical, helmets sealed, weapons held low, not raised but red. Celera stepped forward, and the air felt heavy, like standing near a reactor. At the center stood Admiral Corin Hale. No crown, no cape, no attempt to intimidate through decoration. His presence did it on its own. He looked at Celera the way a battlefield looks at a newcomer, without emotion, but with absolute attention. "You asked for a meeting," Hale said. His voice was level. "Here we are." Celera swallowed, then lifted her chin. "I am High Chancellor Celera of the Concorde." "I know," Hale said. "No respect, no insult, just fact." Then he turned. "Walk." Celera hesitated only long enough to realize hesitation was useless, then followed. The corridors of the human ship were not beautiful. They were functional. Every wall panel was armored. Every corner was a camera. Every light was placed for visibility, not ambiance. This was not a vessel built to impress. It was built to survive. "You ignored our messages," Celera said carefully. "You had nothing to offer," Hale replied. Celera's composure tight. "You're erasing the car dominion." Hale stopped and looked at her. "They started something," he said, "and we finished it." His eyes were cold, but not cruel. They were simply certain. Celera forced herself to continue. "And after the car are gone," Hale resumed walking. "That depends." "On what?" He glanced at her as if surprised she still needed to ask. "On whether the rest of you repeat their mistake." Celera felt the meaning settle into her chest like a stone. He wasn't threatening. He was informing. The difference mattered, and it terrified her more. They entered a chamber that looked like a war room stripped of theatrics. A single table, tactical projections, fleet movement maps, the car territory bleeding away into human control like ink in water. "Sit," Hale said. Celera sat. Hale remained standing, hands behind his back, posture like a ship's keel. "You came to talk," he said. "So talk." Celera inhaled. "The Concorde wishes to open negotiations with humanity." "For what?" Hale asked. So calm, so flat. "As equals," Celera said, hearing the lie in her own voice. Hale's gaze sharpened. "You erased us." Celera's throat tightened. "We believed you were gone." Hale leaned forward slightly. "You believed what was convenient." Celera held her ground. "We did not destroy you." Hale's eyes did not change. "No," his voice stayed quiet. "Then tell me where our home went." The words landed like a blade. Celera blinked. "Your home?" Hale's jaw tightened. "Our cradle world, our origin point." Celera tried to find an answer, and found nothing. "No records exist," she said. Hale's expression did not shift, but the room felt colder. "Exactly," he murmured. Then he looked at her fully. "We searched." Celera's heartbeat quickened. "Through the ruins of our old colonies," Hale continued, voice steady. "Through dead archives, through sectors that should have held something. Anything." A pause, and Earth was gone. Celiera swallowed hard. That is impossible. Hale's eyes were eyes, and yet it happened. He turned toward the tactical map. We don't know who did it. Then he looked back at her, but someone erased the road home. The air felt thin. Celiera's hands clenched under the table. You think the Concord? I think, Hale cut in softly, that someone with access to the registry systems removed an entire world from history. He leaned closer. And that takes power. Celiera forced herself to speak. If that is true, I will help you uncover it. For the first time, something like amusement flickered across Hale's face. Not warmth, not gratitude, just recognition. You'll try, he said. Then he stood. We're done. Celiera's breath caught. Done? That's it. Hale's gaze hardened again. Go back, he said. Tell your council what you've learned. Celiera stood slowly. And what is that? Hale's answer was quiet. Final. Humanity is back. A beat. And we are not asking permission. Not the comforting kind. The kind that ruins old plans. Back on Oris. The emergency session dissolved into chaos. As soon as her hologram appeared above the council floor. They won't negotiate. A Thorn delegate demanded. Are they going to invade us? Another hiss. Celiera spoke carefully, because every word felt like it could start a war. They are not here for treaties, she said. They are here to prevent erasure. The hall erupted in arguments. Some insisted on war, others insisted on surrender. The Mir envoy clicked sharply. We cannot defeat them. A Thorn general slammed a fist against stone. Then we unite. Celiera's eyes burned. Unite with what time? She snapped. Silence fell. She looked around at them. You don't understand. The humans are not fighting for territory. She let the truth settle. They are fighting for certainty, for memory, for control of history itself. Aurelian diplomat. Kaelas. Dre spoke quietly. What do they want then? Celiera answered. The only way she could. They want to ensure the galaxy can never pretend they never existed again. The hall felt colder, because that desire wasn't negotiable. You can bargain for resources, you can bargain for borders, but you cannot bargain with someone who believes the universe tried to erase them, because to them, compromise looks like the beginning of disappearance. In the void, Admiral Hale watched another Car stronghold fall, not with spectacle, with inevitability. Car warships tried to run, human ships cut their lanes, Car stations tried to fire, human cannons tore their spines out with controlled force. Then after the last Car fleet dissolved, Hale watched something else happen. Worlds that had lived under Car occupation began lowering shields on their own, not out of love, out of calculation, because the humans didn't arrive with chains. They arrived with structure. They repaired power grids. They reopened hospitals. They rebuilt orbital defenses. They stopped pirates. They made supply lines stable again. To the galaxy's forgotten, that wasn't conquest. That was rescue wearing armor. Captain Mara Kincaid studied the incoming surrender signals. They're joining us, she said softly. Hale nodded. They're joining what works. Mira chimed. Concord communications escalating. Multiple factions requesting terms. Kincaid looked at Hale. Do we answer? Hale stared at the stars. Not yet. Kincaid raised an eyebrow. Why? Hale's voice dropped. Because they still think this is about the car. He turned toward the fleet map. This is about the missing road. Kincaid's expression tightened. Earth. Hale didn't say the name. He didn't need to. Mira spoke again. Quieter. Probability that registry tampering occurred. High. Hale's eyes narrowed. Then someone knows. He exhaled slowly. And when we find them, we'll make sure the truth can't be buried again. Neutral worlds pledged loyalty to the united human systems. Not out of worship, but out of relief. Because the humans had done what the Concord would not. They stopped the car. They didn't debate it. They didn't delay. They acted. And action is persuasive in a way speeches never are. A Thorn general stormed into the chamber. We must strike now while they're busy. Celiera's eyes flashed.
You want to strike an enemy that defeated the car in hours, the general snarled. If we don't, we'll lose everything. Celera stepped closer. Voice like steel. You already have. The general froze. Celera gestured to the projection of human-controlled sectors. Look at the worlds joining them, not because they are forced, because they are convinced. She lowered her voice. This isn't an invasion. This is conversion. That word tasted dangerous, because it meant the Concorde's greatest weapon. Its claim to legitimacy was gone. If people believed the humans were better rulers, then the Concorde was finished. Even without being attacked, Celera closed her eyes briefly and made the final calculation. We go again, she said. Rellan stared at her. You already went. Celera's gaze hardened. This time, we don't go as rulers. She faced the hall. We go as survivors. Weeks later, Celera stood once more before the UHS Resolute ward. This time, she arrived without escort, without ceremony, without arrogance. The human soldiers escorted her not as a prisoner, not as a guest, simply as someone being processed. Admiral Hale met her in the same corridor. You returned, he said. Celera nodded. We are losing control, she admitted. Hale's eyes did not soften. You never had it. The words stung. But Celera didn't argue. She took a slow breath. I want to help you find the road you lost, she said. Hale studied her. You want to save your counts? Celera met his gaze. I want to save lives. Hale's expression remained unreadable. Then he turned. Walk. Again the ship's corridors swallowed them. Again that functional armored silence wrapped around Celera like a warning. This time, she spoke first. If someone erased your homeworld, it would have required access to the registry core. Hale did not respond. Celera continued. The registry core is not operated by one empire. Hale's gaze sharpened. Celera swallowed. It is operated by the Concorde itself. Hale stopped. The air felt heavier. Minna's voice echoed faintly through the corridor, like a thought made audible. Cross-referencing Concorde archival permissions. Multiple legacy keys exist. Hale looked at Celera. So the Concorde had the keys. Celera nodded. Throat tight. And the Concorde is full of liars, she whispered. Hale's expression didn't change, but the temperature of the moment did. Then you understand, he said softly. Celera's voice trembled. Understand what? Hale's eyes were cold stars. That this ends one way. Celera swallowed. With the truth. Hale nodded once. With the truth. Then he said the line that reshaped her entire understanding of what the humans were doing. We don't want to burn the galaxy, he said. A pause. We want to remove the hands that keep rewriting it. The Concorde's final days did not arrive in fire. They arrived in paperwork. Systems filed withdrawal notices. Trade lanes shifted. Defense pacts dissolved. 1,000-year structure collapsed under the simple weight of a better option. Human fleets entered Concorde space not with invasion columns, but with stability teams, engineers, medics, transit regulators, security detachments that dismantled piracy in weeks. And wherever they went, worlds that had been ignored by the Concorde began to breathe again. People don't rebel only because they hate rulers. Sometimes they rebel because they finally see what competence looks like. Celera watched the Concorde symbols fade from screens and banners. It was quiet, almost gentle, which made it more terrifying than a war, because it proved that the Concorde didn't have to be defeated. It only had to be replaced. Admiral Hale stood on the bridge of the Resolute Warden, looking out at a fleet that no longer felt like an invading force. It felt like a new spine being built through the galaxy. Kincaid approached. Your message is ready, she said. Hale nodded. Minna spoke softly. Transmission prepared for open broadcast. Hale stared into the void, then spoke. Send it across every frequency band, every language register, every listening post and civilian receiver. A simple message moved through the stars. Not a threat, not a boast. A statement. We do not seek to be feared. We seek to be unarrested. If you stood aside while the cat devoured the weak, Understand this. That era is over. Then at the end, quiet as a door closing, history is no longer yours alone. Celera listened from Aura. She felt the old world end. Not with explosions, but with that calm certainty, and she realized the most chilling part wasn't the human weapons, it wasn't their armor, it wasn't their fleet discipline, it was their patience. They had waited in the dark long enough to learn that the universe's most dangerous weapon is not fire, it's forgetting, and now at last, they were building a galaxy where forgetting them would be impossible. Closing moment. Soft, reflective, somewhere in the outer sectors, a forgotten child on a forgotten moon looked up at the night sky and saw ships. Not Concorde ships, not car ships, ships marked with no ornate banners, just a simple emblem. Clean as true. The child did not know the legends, did not know the myths, did not know the old council warnings about the species that had vanished. The child only knew something simpler. For the first time in a long time, the sky looked protected, and far beyond that moon, the ones the maps erased kept moving, quietly rebuilding the roads, restoring the lines, and hunting the answer to a question that had haunted them longer than war ever could. Who stole a world and thought no one would come back to look for it? Because now humanity was looking, and this time the galaxy would not get to pretend it never happened.